Hello YouTube world, my name is Nicholas Montez and you're watching my YouTube channel, Nicholas Montez. Welcome back to the new YouTube channel everybody. I'm so excited to have y'all back here together again. Now in today's video, we're going to be doing something fun today because today we're doing another tier list. And this time we're doing it on the MCU because of the newly released film, Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And yeah, so we're going to get straight into this. I'm only including the movies because I don't do the shows, movies, and specials together just because that's too much, and I don't think I'll ever do that, so just to let you know. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to start off with Iron Man, which is the first film of this franchise, and we're just going to start straight up right here in that A tier category. I love this movie. First off, Robert Downey Jr. is perfect in the role of Tony Stark, Bruce Banner. No, oh my god, I said Bruce Banner, not Bruce Banner, Tony, I meant, you know what I mean, Robert Downey Jr., I'm sorry, if you guys know, I'm filming this, like, late at night, so I'm tired, but, yeah, Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, Iron Man, he's great, and what makes him great is that he has great chemistry with everyone, but he also just goes through an amazing arc that is satisfying, especially during Endgame, which I love. So this movie packs a lot of emotions. Well, not a lot of emotions, but it's very grounded, especially since it's the first movie, and it doesn't have to have all the weight of the MCU on its shoulders. So that's kind of one of the best things about this movie. But you know, the action sequences were great, the soundtrack was great. It really was just one of the best films in the MCU since this one. So I personally loved this movie. Then we got The Incredible Hulk. And I'm actually going to be real for this one, and I'm actually going to put it in that C category. And I liked this movie. I know a lot of people didn't. I get that, kinda. But I liked the movie. It tells a good story with the Hulk and Bruce Banner trying to overcome his things and trying to figure out a cure for the Hulk. And I think there's stuff about that's interesting. Where it's like, and if you watch the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes series, he actually goes through stuff. And he's battling with his demons and the Hulk inside of him. And it's really interesting stuff in that show if you watch it. And in this movie, it's interesting. It's kind of interesting a little bit, but they don't really do that. The Hulk action in this film is also great, and you actually get 3 sequences. One in the dark, where it's like a horror film. One in broad daylight, where you can see everything, and then one in Harlem with him and Abomination, which I thought was awesome. So it does great action. It has pretty good story, and also the music in the film is also great. So I enjoyed this film a good bit. Then we got Iron Man 2, and I'm actually going to put this film in that D tier category. Now, the movie is far from perfect, and it's far from being good. But the thing is, I do have a lot of fun with it. And I think the reason why is because you're coming back to the Iron Man world. And the Iron Man world is fun. It's exciting. And you like these characters. And so, coming back to this world with a guy that can build a suit and fly is fun. All the action sequences, like the first film, there's not much of them, but at the same time, when it happens, it's awesome. And, you know, the introduction to Black Widow was also great. Scarlett Johansson was perfect in the role. And even her, when she gets in on the action, she's great. The villain in Whiplash and Justin Hammer, I thought were not that great. This movie is pretty bad on villains. And yeah, so the action is good. Just seeing the world of Iron Man again was great, and the introduction of Black Widow was, of course, great. And then we got Thor, which, after thinking for a while, I kept thinking, should I put this movie in the F tier? And at first I was going to put it in the D tier, but now I'm actually going to put it in the F tier, because it's so hard to like this movie. Because the way the story starts out is that it starts out with this frost giant war, and Thor's about to become king of Asgard, but then Asgard gets ambushed. They're about to steal their source of power, but then they get defeated, and Thor thinks that there's a reason why they didn't steal anything, and so he wants to cause war against Jotunheim. He goes fight some frost giants, but then that causes him to get banished to Earth, and then the whole movie basically spends time on Earth and him relating to Earth people, and you get introduced to all these weird characters, and it's like, this movie's supposed to set up Asgard. Why are we spending so much time on Earth? And it's like, it's kind of awkward, especially when we get into those characters. I mean, Jane Foster was kind of fine, but like, just overall, the movie is pretty bad. I'm sorry. There are some scenes I did like, and there's some casting decisions. I love Chris Hemsworth as Thor. It's great to see him. But it's like, there's some things in this movie that I just cannot get over. Then we got Captain America, the First Avenger. I thought this was a pretty good movie that did the introduction to Captain America great. Chris Evans as Captain America was great. Steve Rogers was great. Haley Atwell as Peggy Carter was great. Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes was pretty cool. Tommy Lee Jones as Colonel Phillips was cool. And then also, Hugo Weaving as Red Skull was great. A bunch of the war stuff in this movie, even the action was great. This film is pretty cool, and I do like it, and it has a nice war vibe, and the score from Alan Silvestri is also great. Then we got The Avengers, which is the pinnacle of Phase 1. I was also about to say Phase 5. Phase 1, and I think that this film really encapsulates what a superhero team-up movie is supposed to be. And for some reason, for most of these other superhero films that we've gotten in the past couple of years, and most recently, they've kind of been copying what they've been doing in the finale of this movie, where a lot of the superhero movies these days, a death inspires the hero to keep moving forward and go and win the fight. In this movie, Phil Coulson inspired the Avengers to assemble and take on the Chitauri and protect it from Loki and the Earth. When Aunt May died, it inspired Peter Parker to team up with his two other Spider-Mans to go save the multiverse and cure the Sinister Five. Then when Queen Ramonda died, it inspired Shuri to take the heart shape and become the next Black Panther and go take on Namor. And so you see that a lot throughout most of these films, and I think most of them are done in different ways. They're obviously done in different ways because, Spider-Man, we're seeing 3 different Spider-Man. Black Panther, we're seeing basically an army of a nation fighting an underwater army of a nation. Underwater army of an underwater nation. So it's kind of different, but at the same time, it's still the same thing in a way. It's still similar. So then of course, all the character interactions, they nail them. Every single fan service scene, whether it's every fight they could possibly think of, whether it's Iron Man versus Thor, whether it's even the stuff with Hulk and Thor, I thought was great. Even the stuff with Tony Stark and Captain America, I thought was great too. And then even the action sequences when it gets into that, I thought were great. So, especially in the third act with New York. And overall, I thought this film was great. And this is going in that top tier category in the A tier. And it is definitively the best film of Phase 4. I mean, the best film of Phase 1. And then we get into Iron Man 3, which I think is actually a pretty good film. And I will put this movie in that C tier. I think that this is a definitive good movie. I think the best thing about this movie when it comes to it is just the stuff that Tony Stark deals with after the Avengers. That, what would a person do if after going into a wormhole and sending a nuke through space, and then you get PTSD through that. And that's something so interesting that I never thought you could really explore in a film. And especially with this character, because he's the one that's seen pretty much everything. And it was really interesting in the way they explored that. And then also, all the action sequences with Tony Stark and seeing Tony Stark outside the suit was also kind of cool. Especially that he used ornaments as bombs. Ornament bombs. I thought that was great. Harley Keener, the little kid, I thought he had a cool little story arc in the film. And then, of course, the third act where we get all the Iron Man suits fighting all the extremist soldiers, I thought was cool. However, when it comes to, the ending of the film where he just blows up all his suits and he has no more suits and he just gives up being Iron Man, it does kind of feel a little bit weird because, this was supposed to be the last film before his thing, and, but then he decided to go do Age of Ultron, and then Civil War, and then Homecoming, and then Infinity War, and then Endgame. And, yeah, so I think this is a good movie. The villain is weak. I'll just say that. The villain is weak. Also, when Pepper gets new powers, it's pretty cool, so, yeah, this movie is pretty cool. But then we get Thor the Dark World, which is not a cool movie, and it's actually going to go in that F tier category. Which, for me, this movie is just not that good. First off, the villain is just forgettable, and the scheme that he is going for, even the backstory doesn't really explain it all that much. It's like there's emergence, and his power source was the ether. And here's the thing about this film. I will give 3 props to it. The action is great. Loki is a standout character in the film, even though he fakes his own death again. And I like how they actually establish who the villain of the film is, where it's like you're not really picking and choosing who the villain of the film is in the original Thor, because it's like the main story of the film is Thor coming to Earth and learning what it is to be a good man, not just a warrior searching for battle and craving for battle. This movie actually has a villain, but at the same time, it's like that's not it. At the same time, it can't really be positive because it doesn't do anything interesting, and that's disappointing. And also, the humor just did not work. Then we had Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and I'm gonna be clearly honest with you. I think that this is a very good film where they took the character of Steve Rogers and Captain America and placed him in a world where his fight style is much different than the original film, where he's kind of like this spy type guy. They also just made a political thriller with exciting action sequences and blowing up cars and stuff and hand-to-hand combat, which I thought was great. And then also just the way the story was executed in seeing that the world wasn't like it was like many years ago, where good and bad was easy to see. Now it's not. And I think that's really interesting in the way you do it. And then, of course, all the characters they introduced. Seeing Bucky Barnes as Winter Soldier, it was great. Seeing Anthony Mackie as Falcon was great. This probably might be one of the best performances of Black Widow in Natasha again. Just a lot of great stuff. I debate on whether putting this in the A tier, but at the same time, the A tier is more for films that I connect to more. And I respect this movie a lot, but I just don't see it as one of my favorite films. I really don't. I'm sorry. It's just it's more political, and I don't really connect with political films all that much. But I truly respect it. I truly do. And then we got Guardians of the Galaxy, which is another great film. And going into this movie, I was like, what is this movie? Why is there a talking tree, a talking raccoon? And they literally became household names of this franchise, and casting Bradley Cooper and the Vin Diesel. Awesome casting. And then, of course, what James Gunn was able to do with this film is just capture a story about family and emotional stuff. And then, of course, the visuals are amazing. And then even when it gets into the action, it's actually pretty fun. The villain is okay, but what makes it so great is the characters and the way that they're actually able to work together. And the story that is captivating is pretty great. So I'm actually going to put this in this A tier. And you also do kind of get emotional when Groot dies, and he says, "We are Groot." And then we got Avengers Age of Ultron, which is it's such a difficult film to talk about because there's things I do really like about it. I love the action, I love all the interactions, I love the bloopers too, because there's a lot of stuff in this movie, but it's like, Ultron is just such a weird villain. You don't really understand his motivation, and it's kind of confusing. I love the introduction to Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and Vision. I love the introduction to Andy Serkis as Claw in this film. I love that. And James Spader was okay as Ultron. Seeing the Hulkbuster suit for the first time was also really great. But overall, it's kind of a weird film. It's kind of like Iron Man 2 a little bit, where it's like you have a lot of fun, but there's so much stuff that this movie does, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to put this film in the D tier. Now, I enjoy it drastically more than Iron Man 2, and I would give this movie a B minus, whereas Iron Man 2, I would give it a C+. So, that's kind of where I'm putting Avengers Age of Ultron. Then we got Ant-Man, which I'm actually going to put that in the B category. I think that this is a very good film from Marvel Studios where they told a different type of story with a new character, where Paul Rudd is great as Ant-Man. Scott Lang, they told a good not only did they tell a funny story with humor and it's a heist story, but they also told a story that kind of had some emotions, that kind of had a nice little story that felt familiar but at the same time felt different and new enough that I felt was pretty good. And the action sequences also worked really well, and it kind of created an arc for all of our characters. And of course, Luis is great as he tells stories and all the ex-con people. So this film is pretty good. The villain is okay, though I kind of do like Yellow Jacket a lot more than Ironmonger, so I'm gonna say that. Then we got Captain America Civil War, and this is a big film. This really is a huge film, at least for me. First off, just the way that the Russo brothers was able to tell this such mature story of, and once again making it a political thriller, except telling a different type of story of the Avengers. Like, the Avengers have saved so many lives, you know, saving New York, saving Washington D.C., Sokovia, and then recently Lagos. But you start to realize that these actions have consequences. That while they were saving the world, they've also kind of killed people in the process. And that's a really interesting storyline to come up with, and that the Avengers should be under the control of the government. And that's a really interesting story to come up with. And what also really puts this film great is making it an Avengers story while also making it a Captain America film, and also setting up so many future stories for future MCU projects and films, which I thought that was one of the best parts about this film. And then, of course, you know, the rivalry between Iron Man and Captain America was also great, where both sides are wrong in certain ways, but both sides are right in certain ways. And then, kind of continuing the stuff with Captain America and having the Peggy Carter death, doing more stuff with Sharon Carter, having more of Bucky and more of that great action sequences that you loved from Winter Soldier and stuff. Just an overall great movie. And then you put it on top with the airport sequence, which is fantastic, where you get all these characters teaming up. You get Giant Man, you get all these characters fighting together, fighting each other. And then, of course, the third act, where you get Iron Man, Bucky, and Captain America. It's so personal, and it's so hard, it's so emotional with these characters, especially. It's so heart-wrenching. And then, of course, the other big thing about this film is, of course, it introduces Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa, Black Panther, and Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Great roles as these characters. And they did fantastic in their roles in this movie. So, and also they set up their stories very well, and I love that this movie set up Infinity War, set up Black Panther, as well as Spider-Man Homecoming. So this movie just did a lot of great stuff for me. And also, it was kind of like one of the first movies that really got me into Marvel, especially that airport sequence, where we got to see all those characters come together. If you don't know that story, and if you're new to my channel and you don't know that story, go watch my my intro video, because it's a doozy, and it really is a big part of my life. So I'm gonna put this right up there in that A category because it's a great movie. Then we got Doctor Strange. I really did like this movie. Benedict Cumberbatch was great in this role as Doctor Stephen Strange. He really nailed it. But what really nailed this film for me was really just the different stuff they did with the film, and introducing mystical arts, magic in the MCU, and also these Inception-like visuals. And I thought all of that was awesome. All the action sequences were also pretty cool, and especially the way they were done. The villain sucks. All the villains in this movie suck. The arc that Steven... Excuse me right there. The arc that Steven has in this film, it feels a little similar to what what Tony Stark went through in the first Iron Man. But I accept it. So I'm gonna put this right up there in that C category. In that B category, and it's definitely one of my personal enjoyment films. Then we got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and this is one that I have. It's kind of tricky because I actually do kind of enjoy this movie. And that, the story, yeah, it's not really great. It's kind of terrible. Especially with the stuff that they are doing. Do I have a lot of fun with the Guardians? Hell yeah, I have a lot of fun. But honestly, like, this isn't like Iron Man 2 where it's like there's so much going on. This movie just brings in a lot of the enjoyment, where it has a lot of character moments and really dives deep into more of that family value. And Yondu gives a great performance in this film. I loved Yondu in this film. Kurt Russell as Ego in the film was pretty great, in a way. And then, of course, I think my favorite moment of the entire film is when you get the Yondu Ravager funeral, where it plays that song, and it really tugs the heartstrings. I almost get chills every time I watch that scene. It really is a chilling scene. So I'm actually going to put this film in the bottom of the C tier, because I actually do enjoy this movie more than other people. Then we got Spider-Man Homecoming, which is a movie that I actually do enjoy a good bit. And I really do like it a lot. And I'm actually going to put this in the A tier category, where, I was so excited for this movie. I was thinking we were going to get another Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man film, where we're going to get the origin story. We're going to get him getting bit by the spider. We're going to get another Uncle Ben death. And they don't really do that. They basically take it after Civil War. And instead it's also kind of a street level story where he's trying to stop the Vulture from stealing all these weapons and stuff. And I thought that the way they actually told the story was actually pretty cool. And the Vulture is a great villain, and that threat he makes to Spider-Man in the car was also great. The biggest critique I have with the film is just the action sequences were not that good. I wanted more action with the film, but I like the way they actually do Peter Parker's character in the film, where it's like, obviously he's wearing a suit with Stark technology in it, but it's kind of more than that, really, because at the same time he's also trying to stop this guy, but at the same time it's also street level, and he's trying to make Tony Stark proud, but he's also trying to be his own man. And I think that this is at least the best version of Spider-Man we've ever seen that I really like. So I really loved this movie, so that's why it's going in that B tier category. Then we got Thor Ragnarok. I love this movie. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. That's why you're going to go in that A tier category. This is just a great film all around. All around. Because, it's just a good movie, and, it's just so fun. When Taika Waititi entered this franchise, he really redid the Thor franchise like it's nothing. Like he said, and excuse my language, fuck these two Thor films. We're gonna be making a new type of Thor film. We're redoing the whole character of Thor, and we're gonna do it in a very fun way. And I loved this movie. And it's not just that they made it fun and they redid the Thor character where they made him goofy, but at the same time they told a story that had stakes, for our characters, that meant something to the future of the MCU, that meant Asgard. And you actually had a threat with Hela, played by Kate Blanchett, which was amazing casting, who was a threat. And yeah, she kills the Warriors 3 in one blow. So what? She's still a threat. She killed the entire army of Asgard. Like, all the other armies of Asgard that are on New Asgard now are basically people on Earth. They're not exactly Asgardians anymore. And so yeah, she was great. But then also, you got Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie. You got Taika Waititi himself, the director, as Korg. You got Hulk back. You got Loki back. All the action sequences in the film were also great. And the movie itself is it's funny. It's enjoyable. It also has a great soundtrack with Led Zeppelin. Overall, just the movie is fantastic. I love this movie. And, I can see, and honestly, if you're wondering, like, Thor Ragnarok and Thor Love and Thunder do the same thing with making Thor a parody. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like Thor Love and Thunder did that more Thor Ragnarok, and Thor Ragnarok actually worked, and it actually told a great story, and did all that stuff right. So that's my thoughts on Thor Ragnarok and that little thing that everybody says about that. Then we have the film that is the original film that we're talking about, the sequel, and that is Black Panther. And I'm gonna put this film right up in that B tier category. Personally, I love this movie. Should I put this in A tier? Because, after rewatching that film and really rewatching this new film this past weekend, I'm thinking about maybe putting it in that top tier. Should I? I think I'm gonna put it in that top tier. Yeah, I love this movie. I'm sorry, it's an A-, but I'm putting it in that top tier. I really love Black Panther, guys. It's such a good film. First off, I love the world of Wakanda. It is such a great world where it's like you don't just get to see the cool technology there, but you also get to see how the people live, how you really get to see the culture, and that's what Ryan Coogler really does really well, is doing culture in a way where you get to see how they dance, how they fight, how they talk, how they do things in Africa and Wakanda. And I think that's really interesting. But then, of course, the characters, the human stuff, all the characters in the film are just great. From Nakia to Okoye to Shuri to M'Baku, even the chants that they do with Yibambe, all that stuff was great. Honestly, I really wish that we could have been in the theater and done it together, because it would have been awesome. For the new film, though there wasn't much of that. But what really makes this film so great is that the story with Killmonger is really what puts this film on top. Where he has this motivation where he was abandoned. The world took everything away from him, everything he ever loved, and he wants to, and he has what's necessary to change Wakanda. And it's a great story in that Wakanda should be helping others that are helpless. He should be helping other people that look like them, and really revealing the secrets to the world of that Wakanda has more vibranium, and that everybody just thinks that Klaus stole all their vibranium. And it's a very interesting story, and I really love that. And I love that they were able to use that story in that aspect. And then, of course, some of the action is also pretty great. The third act can be a little bit weird at times, but I do kind of like the stuff with the war rhinos and the Dora Milaje and the border tribe stuff. It's all great. The score from the film with Baba Mal and the drums by Bissa Diop or whatever his name is. That score was great, and will be one of the best scores of the MCU ever. This film is fan-freaking-tastic. And then also, the end credit scenes are also great too. And then we get a personal favorite film of mine next, which is Avengers Infinity War. How do you talk about a film like this? How do you talk about a film like this? First off, I think the way they told the story in this movie is great, where they were able to establish all of these characters that we know and love, and they're able to put them in the story in a way that makes sense. But what really capitulates this film is Thanos. Thanos is such a threatening bad guy, and this meaning of killing half of a life in the universe makes sense because of that he could not feed everyone on his planet. So if he kills half of all life in the universe, half of those people can get everyone can get what they want and can be perfectly balanced. And that's what makes his character so interesting. Like, especially in the scene when he kills Gamora, it really establishes what kind of guy he is, that he'll do anything to accomplish his goal, whether he'll try to kill him. And I really love that about the film. And I love Thanos. I love the villain. But then, of course, the stuff with the characters, with our heroes, that's what also makes this film great, as you get a bunch of great character interactions, especially with, like, Iron Man and Doctor Strange, Thor teaming up with the Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor and Rocket teaming up, Bucky and Rocket teaming up, and then the little interactions with Captain America and Groot in the Battle of Wakanda, even Spider-Man, and Doctor Strange teaming up, and then they team with the Guardians later. Captain America and some of the Avengers team up with the Wakandans. And then even then you get to see, like, Spider-Man gain the Iron Spider suit. And then even then, all at the same time, while you're having all these cool interactions, you also just focus on these characters with Iron Man, Thor, Gamora, and you have a lot of main characters and stuff, and it really works. And then also, all the action sequences were great, and even the scene where Thor arrives from Wakanda with the new hammer he has, with the new axe, you're like, let's go! Let's go fight Thanos! Bring me Thanos now! And, there's a lot of iconic moments, just a thrilling movie, and then you get the ending where you actually have, for the first time in forever, where the villain wins. And he kills off half of our favorite characters, where he kills off Black Panther, he kills off Groot, he kills off Bucky, he kills off Falcon, and he even kills off Spider-Man, which is very devastating. So, all that being said, I'm gonna have to put this film right up in that A-tier category because it is that worthy of a film. I love Avengers Infinity War so much. And then we got Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. But also, by the way, Infinity War is my favorite movie of all time, if you haven't known. Then we got Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and this movie is good. Yeah, I know. I was talking so deep on it, Infinity War. I'm sorry, guys. You should know me by now. I love Infinity War. I love the MCU. This movie is the reason why I love the MCU. Oh, my phone's about to die, but hopefully we'll finish by this until then. But who knows? But yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp it's a nice break after Infinity War. The action sequences were mostly spoiled in the trailers. But it does tell a good story. I like Ghost, and I'm excited to see her in the Thunderbolts film. And of course, seeing Evangeline Lilly come in the Wasp suit for the first time, and then getting that little story and them rescuing Janet Van Dyne from the quantum realm. It's kind of nice, a nice little thing they did. So I thought that was pretty cool. So, where exactly does this film place? That's a good question, and I might put it, I'm going to put it right here. Because I think The Incredible Hulk has a lot of stuff going for it that I think it works better. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania uses a familiar formula, some new, but doesn't really do anything really interesting or new. It's just a nice break, and you have at the same time, I still have a lot of fun with it. Then we got Captain Marvel. And this is a movie that, you know, a lot of people tend to kind of just, you know, trash on. I like this movie. You know, it's not great, it's not terrible, but it's good. Looking back on this film, I do kind of like Brie Larson in this film as Captain Marvel, where it's kind of like a train wreck where it's like, how are you, like, she forgets her memory and she finally gets it back. And yeah, the stuff in the third act where she, you know, just learns how to fly properly and blast these ships with no effort. Yeah, it's a little bit goofy, but at the same time, it gives the fans what they want from this character, and it shows you. But at the same time, I thought they did a story that was cool. Seeing Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury in the 90s was just really cool. I really enjoyed that about the film. And then, you know, seeing Maria Rambeau in this film was cool. Seeing a younger Monica Rambeau in this film was pretty cool. I like that Talos was actually the good guy of the film and he wasn't the bad guy. And I'm interested how that's going to play out in the Secret Invasion show. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I think did well with the story and the characters and some of the action. So I'm actually going to put this in the C tier, but above Iron Man 3. I think that this is a pretty good film. And then we're back with the emotions again with Avengers Endgame. And once again, this movie knows how to tell a story. And it really does know how to tell a story. Where it does a sequel, it knows how to continue its characters. Hold on 1 minute. Where they tell these characters in different stories. And when you do the 5-year time jump, you tell these different types of stories with these characters and focusing on grief and loss after their big defeat. And especially in the way they bring time travel in, and that they're kind of haunted by their past. That's a very interesting story with this film. And especially when you get into the third act and you see Thanos come back, it's so haunting. And, you know, that last hour, man, that last hour is so good, you know. It first starts out, Hulk snaps everyone back here, but before that happens, the Avengers campus gets destroyed. Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America go out to have a fight with Thanos. Captain America wields that shield. Everybody's going crazy. Yeah! Let's go! I knew he could wield the hammer back in Age of Ultron. He's beating the crap out of him, but then Thanos starts breaking that shield. Then he starts getting his army out of the Black Order, the Outriders, the Chitauri, everyone. He's strapped to that shield. He's ready for one last fight. But then he hears something. Are you here, Cap? It's me, Sam. And then he says, on your left. Doctor Strange portal opens. T'Challa, Okoye, and Shuri are the first ones to walk out. And you're like, yeah! Let's go! They're back! And then Falcon swoops in, and then all the other portals start opening. You see the Guardians open up, and Spider-Man comes in. Yeah! Bucky and Groot and the Wakandan armies. Yeah! T'Challa does the Wakandan chant. Hey, Bombay! Yeah! And then you get Scarlet Witch, Korg, Meek, Valkyrie, and the Asgardian armies. You get Wasp show through a little portal, as well as even Howard the Duck. Pepper Potts comes in as an Iron Man suit that Tony made for her. Even the Masters of the Mystic Arts and Wong came in, and then you see Giant Man come in from the debris with Hulk, War Machine, and Rocket in his hand, and then Cap has a sigh of relief. He gets that hammer back. And he says the classic line, Avengers assemble, and the army of the past and the army of the present go face to face to battle, and it is the most epic thing I have ever seen in Marvel history. And especially with what we're getting with Avengers Secret Wars and Avengers Kang Dynasty, I really don't know what will cap that off. Will it be the army of the multiverse against saving the multiverse against an army of Kangs and Doctor Dooms? Is that what that is? I'm really curious to see what that thing is going to be. Because I'm so curious, but that third act is so special. It is really, if you're a Marvel fan and you play with your toys a lot as a kid, that is a big thing for you. And then, of course, you get the big moment where Tony snaps his fingers. He kills Thanos and everyone, and it's like it's finally the most satisfying way to kill Thanos, to finally have that winning defeat, that winning sacrifice, and then Tony Stark dies, saving everyone. It's so sad. And then, Sam Wilson gets passed on the role of Captain America, and all that stuff I think is great. And yeah, this movie is emotional, it's action-packed. The Thor stuff, I'm not the biggest fan of. The movie is exceptionally long, and I love it, and it's just a great film. So, I'm going to put this film in the A tier, but it's going to be next to Infinity War, because I love Infinity War way more. But Endgame is still a great film. And then we get Spider-Man Far From Home, and it's not exactly as good as I remember it. It's a good movie. I'm not saying it's bad, but, and of course, the Spider-Man action, they definitely improved on this, especially since Homecoming. He's doing like a lot of swinging stuff, which I love, and they really do a great job with that. Mysterio is a pretty good villain in the way they did the fight scenes with him and the character. I thought that was great. My biggest problem, though, is that the humor just goes too much. The humor just goes too much, and for me, that puts it down a little bit. So, unfortunately, I will put this film in the C tier category, because I do enjoy the film, but it's not the best MCU film. And that concludes Phase 3, and now we're going to go with Phase 4. And we have 7 films to talk about before this thing ends. So first up, we got Black Widow. I like generic Marvel. I like that familiar tone. It's kind of like Ant-Man and the Wasp. They had a familiar tone, except they did some different stuff. And except it's not really a heist movie anymore. It's just a Ant-Man movie. They just kind of use a familiar tone, and it's street level. And this movie, same thing. It's a political thriller. It's like thriller, intrigue thriller. She's on the run from the government, but at the same time, it's focusing on this stuff with her past, and her past is catching up to her, and she kind of has to pay for her actions. All this stuff with that. I thought the action sequences were great. I thought Red Guardian and Yelena were great introductions to this universe, and I'm excited. And once again, I'm excited to see them in Thunderbolts. So for me, with all of that, I thought that this was a pretty satisfying story. Taskmaster was easily the worst part of this movie. I did not like the way they did them. Dreykov was okay, I guess. But I guess you could say I'm excited to see Taskmaster in Thunderbolts, though I don't think they should add him in the lineup. I don't think they should add her in the lineup, but I'm pretty sure she'll be a good guy and she'll speak at one point, and she won't just be a copycat Michael Myers. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on the film, and you're going to go in the C tier category above Ant-Man and the Wasp. Then we get Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Now, this movie is so difficult to talk about because, to be clear, there's a lot of things I love about this film. First off, the way that they introduce martial arts action in the MCU is just phenomenal. Just phenomenal. And I love the action in this film. It has some of the best action in the MCU since Winter Soldier. However, and I love the characters that we introduced. Shang-Chi is a great character, especially with the arc that he spent 10 years running from his past, and now it's catching up to him, much like Black Widow. I think the best character of the entire film is probably the sister, because she actually has the most completed arc, and where she made a fight club in Tokyo, and now she's the leader of the new Ten Rings. And then you watch the ending of this movie, and it just leads to a fight of stopping monsters, secret indwellers, and stuff like that. And I'm like, So all the martial arts action was just to have this cool stuff, but then it led to all this like multiversal shit stuff. Like what? Is that what all this? Is that what all this was leading towards? Like it set up a cool story with connecting with the mom and stuff, but it's like I don't think I wanted that, and it's like I can't really think of any other way of how they could really have done that. And for me, for some reason, with the way the ending turned out, it just really kind of took my experience out of the movie a little bit. And for that reason, I'm very sorry to all you Shang-Chi fans, but I gotta put this in the D tier. I'm sorry, but that's just how it goes. And yeah, I find this movie better than this movie, Guardians 2 is better than this movie. I'm sorry. But, and now granted, I would rewatch Shang-Chi way more than Guardians of the Galaxy, but, that's where I'm going to place it, unfortunately. And then we have Eternals, which is easily one of the worst films in the MCU, and this is no shocker here, but I'm going to put it in that F tier category. It's just a bad movie. First off, just the way they do all the characters, and not really doing one main character, but making all of them the main character, that's what really struggles with this movie, and I just do not like that. At the same time, and you know, the story, there's too many plot lines, really, and even the villain doesn't even save it. It also just has a huge villain problem, and so it's like, you look at films like Black Widow, where it's like the whole movie is pretty good, and you look at the villain like that's the biggest problem with the movie. This movie is really bad, and the villain makes it worse, and the villain doesn't even help it, and I'm like, wow, I just can't believe that. And at the same time, you know, I'm excited to see the Eternal sequel, because I think the way they set it up was pretty cool. You know, they're setting up Black Knight, they're setting up Arrows with Harry Styles' character, so I'm excited to see that. But not the biggest fan of this film. Now, if you want to talk about some positives, the action sequences were pretty cool. A lot of characters really got in on the action, and I really love that. The visuals, the fact that it actually was filmed on in real places was actually one of the best parts about this film. And then also, you know, there are at least 3 characters from the film, which were Gilgamesh, Athena, and Kingo. Every other character just kind of sucked and were bland. I guess you could say the black guy from Chucky, or at least in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, he was kind of cool with his power set and his action style, but everything else was just kind of weird. So that's my thoughts on Eternals. But then we got another special film, which is Spider-Man No Way Home, which is one of my personal favorite films. And, you know, it's not just that it's a cameo fest film, but it really is the first time where they really just tell a great Spider-Man story. At least for me, and they really told a great Spider-Man story since Into the Spider-Verse and the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man film, where they were actually able to, whereas like with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, we got an established story where their origin story was in their first movies. We already got the origin story done, so we're able to continue their stories in the next 2 films. And then with this movie, we have his first movie, and we don't get his origin story. We just see him continue after Civil War. And you're thinking like, well, because we've seen the story multiple times, we're thinking maybe it already happened. Like maybe Uncle Ben happened. Maybe he got that speech already. Okay, maybe all that happened. And this film actually reveals that none of that really happened. Now, if you want to talk about the Uncle Ben death, I'm pretty sure it did happen, but I'm pretty sure it happened at a young age where Peter doesn't remember. But the important stuff of Peter losing a loved one that means someone to him, like not Tony Stark, because he's not blood relative. That's his mentor. That's a friend. This is a death of a person who was family to him and meant a lot to him, but was also a inspiration to him, where she was the Uncle Ben. When Aunt May died, you started to realize she was the Uncle Ben of this universe, and that when she says, with great power comes great responsibility, she's the Uncle Ben. And it was a nice way to actually do a different type of story, but then you also started to realize that when you watch this movie, you started to realize that this whole trilogy was origin story. And that's a really clever way to tell a superhero story, especially with a character that's been so established for so many years, and I love that. It's just such a clever way. And then, you even have you even have Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man teaching him that lesson, and they're able to tell it through such greatness, and I love that. Such a great way to tell a Spider-Man story, and doing it in a way that's another multiverse story, and except it's in live action, and I love that. But then, of course, besides all that, I mean, come on. You have Tobey Maguire, besides all the villains turning, you got Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield coming back as Spider in their Spider-Man parts. Who doesn't want to see that? And, the movie is awesome on so many levels, all the interactions that they got with all three of them, all the jokes that they make about all the MCU stuff, like, I don't know if you know this, but back in my world, I was an Avenger. And Toby's like, wait, what's an Avenger? Like, is that a band? Are you in a band? And like, all that stuff was great. But then even then, all of the iconic moments, whether it's the moment where they all meet, or the moment where they're just having the little moment where they're talking about the villains they fought, cracking the backs, all that stuff. How Toby's webs work, since his webs are organic. And then the big moment that I loved from these three, besides the interactions, where it was the scene where they swing on the top of the Statue of Liberty. That scene was fan-freaking-tastic. And the score from Michael Giacchino was absolutely fantastic in this movie. And also, another thing I loved about this film was, so they nailed the emotions. They nailed that stuff all right. But then let's talk about the villains, because we can all count all 5 villains in the movie as the main villains of the film. Green Goblin is the villain of this film, because he killed Aunt May. He caused this whole incursion to collapse. He caused Spider-Man a good amount of pain, both physically and emotionally. He's the villain of this film, and I thought the performance that Willem Dafoe gave was fan-freaking-tastic. Fan-freaking-tastic. I loved Willem Dafoe's performance in this film. But then, all the other villains, Electro was probably second best, because, Doc Ock, while it was cool seeing him again, he was more of a superhero rather than an actual, villain. He was a villain in the beginning of the film, but then he's the first one to get cured, so he's not really a villain anymore. Electro is also a pretty good villain, especially since he's cool with Jamie Foxx now. And I thought that they actually did a cool arc with him, and they kind of just, went back to the original Electro roots of his character, which I thought was cool. Lizard and Sandman were definitely disappointing. I wish they'd really had more to do. And then, I guess on a directorial level, what John Watts was able to do with this film, and doing the tone right with the humor at the right time, while at the same time resting on the moments that truly matter, I thought that was a big achievement from this guy that really did emotions right. And then just on a technical level, the action sequences were also great, whether it was the one in the apartment scene, or even all the fights with Spider-Man and Green Goblin were amazing. I love the fights in this film. And so this film is great. And even, the humor also works too, and then even the emotions are also amazing. And then, if you want to talk about some issues, the first 20 minutes are really the big problem with the film. Because one of my things with the film is that, it's so different. It has such a great tone, but the tone starts off the way it did back in Far From Home and Homecoming. And it's if you're going to do a new Spider-Man film with a new tone, you should really set up that tone differently in the beginning of the film, where it's we're telling a new Spider-Man story, and we're gonna let you sit with Spider-Man in his identity crisis. And I wanted to see that, but it was more of goofy and happy, and I didn't really like that. Besides that, this movie is fan-freaking-tastic, and I love Spider-Man No Way Home, and you're gonna go in that A-tier category. I love this movie. Alright, so we got 3 films left, and then we'll be done with this, because I am tired. So then we got Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and fun enough, I like this movie. It's a good movie. Personally, it's not exactly as good as the original Doctor Strange. Personally, what I loved about this film is that they just bring a lot of the Sam Raimi-isms in the MCU, where they make a lot of horror vibes, they do a lot of Army of the Dead, not Army of the Dead, I mean, Day of the Dead, or Evil Dead. They do a lot of kills, horror stuff. I love all the horror stuff they do in this movie. Wanda's arc in the film does seem a little bit weird at times, after rewatching it a couple times. I love the stuff they do with America Chavez. She was also great. Some of the action sequences were also pretty clever, especially that scene with Sinister Strange and Doctor Strange. The Illuminati was kind of a waste, though I'm excited to see the Fantastic Four now that we are getting this. And hopefully we see more of the multiverse in the MCU, so it's kind of my quick thoughts on Doctor Strange 2, and you're going to go right in that B tier category. But it's going to go behind Captain America. And then we got Thor Love and Thunder, which easily is a misfire. Easily a misfire. And it sucks that this film is disappointing, because I was so excited for this film. It was pretty much after Doctor Strange, I was like, I'm so ready for Thor Love and Thunder. I cannot wait. Because after the success, after what I said with Thor Ragnarok, it was such a fun time, such inventive way to reinvent the Thor character, and then taking this one, having fun time with the Thor character while also making a great story. I wanted that film to work, but it just did not. Now, there are some enjoyable stuff with this film. First off, I like the action. I do kind of like Gore as the villain. The deaths in this film, they don't literally characters are just literally have plot armor to continue having them, and it just does not work, and the humor does not even work as well. The only thing that I really liked about the film was, of course, the action, like I just said, and the world building of Omnipotent City, and the stuff with Jane Foster becoming Mighty Thor, and her death. I thought that was emotional, that was satisfying, that all worked. The stuff with Gore was a little bit weird, where it's like she could have just, and I kind of like the arc that they went for it in the third act, which I thought was really good. So, now where does this place in my tier list? That's a good question, and I think I might put it at, the right, I might put it right there. Because, or actually, yeah, I'm gonna put it right here. Yeah, I'm not the best. I could watch this movie, but I'm not really having a good time with it. I'm sorry. And then finally, the film that we've all been waiting for, talking about. The film, the reason why we're doing this video, right here. We're finally at Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. And, like everyone else, I was devastated when I heard Chadwick Boseman passed away. Like everyone else. He passed away on my mom's birthday, so it kind of means a lot to me. But when they released those trailers, they nailed it, and they did it right. And I was like, these trailers, they can't fuck up this movie. They can't. And they mastered it. Where they actually paid off Chadwick Boseman's legacy. But at the same time, they also told a great story with first off, introducing the world of Talokan and Namor the Submariner, which I thought was awesome. They also just used the side characters in a lot of interesting ways and showing how their perspective of T'Challa being gone is, and I really love that, especially with what they did with Shuri, and that she doesn't believe in Bast and God and all that stuff. That was great. And both her and Angela Bassett have great performances in this movie. All the action sequences in this movie were great. The emotions in this movie were great. Riri Williams was great. A lot of the stuff was great. A lot of the stuff was great. Besides that little side plot in the film with Ross and Valentina, and the pacing and some stuff. And I wish we could have gotten more M'Baku and Okoye in the film. Though the stuff what happened with Okoye in the film was crazy. And even the end-credits scene where we actually get T'Challa back in the MCU, that was great. This was a great film. So I love Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and I'm actually going to put this film right in the B tier category. And that's my tier list for the MCU. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. All my social media stuff is in the about section over there. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.